Greetings and welcome to the deadliest game show this side of Takeshi's Castle, Genre Grinder. My returning guest today is co-host of Monster Island and Movie Lobby Commentaries podcast, Luana Saitta.
Hi, Gabe.
Hello.
Hi, Gabe.
Hi.
I'm happy to be here.
A close personal friend. As you know, that was a bit because we're going to be talking about deadliest game show or death sport movie, and that was a bit just now because
Miss Pander says that. Yeah.
Yeah, but also I want you to know that you are a close person.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's not just a bit.
You're not just being Gabe Pander when you say that.
Yes, Gabe Pander. So yeah, today we're going to talk about one of those subjects that inspired me to actually start this podcast in the first place. I was originally going to call it death sport movies, but that didn't really feel right. The best title I could come up with was then most dangerous game shows, because basically we're going to be talking about death. There's two kinds of death sport movies. There's the most dangerous game type, which is some psychotic person or group of psychotic people hunts unwilling human victims for fun. I mean, the name comes from the book Most Dangerous Game. And the second kind is where people battle each other to the death for the entertainment of the masses or some smaller group of psychotic someones. This will be the latter kind, so I'm going to call it Most Dangerous Game Shows.
Right.
And then in order to shrink the pool of movies a bit smaller, I instituted a rather arbitrary rule that this particular podcast will only cover movies where there is some sort of television audience element. And then I was going to subtitle it "The Revolution Will Be Televised," because they're almost all political in nature in one way or another. I thought I was being cute there. But yeah, this is mostly arbitrary.
I'm curious, what did you, because last time we talked about, Daimajin, and we did, Big Monsters, which I get is my jam. What made you invite me specifically for this Deadly Game Shows episode? I like him, but what's
Yeah, I think that it was honestly just that you had posted one day, it might even have been more than a year ago, that something positive about The Running Man. And it was something I had wanted to do, and I was like, who would do this one with me?
Nice about the
She likes The Running Man. She'd love to do this with me. This is natural. This is the way it's going to go. Yeah.
It was probably the gag I made about... it was probably the Ella quote I posted about from 2012 or something, when Hunger Games Catching Fire came out. And just before that was in cinemas, we saw The Running Man, which she had never seen. And I remember her posting or telling me that Arnold topples a dystopia in 90 minutes rather than 4 movies, and
yeah,
and he does it in a yellow spandex suit, delivering puns the whole time.
Yeah.
So that was
Katniss has not a single pun, does she?
No, she barely has a kill. I mean, they keep her hands so clean throughout those 4 movies. It's scandalous.
Yeah, I mean, I made I think that the Hunger Games is a sort of pretty good baby's first
Right.
Revolutionary game show based, the death game
Right.
movie series. The ones we're going to cover are older than that. I made up a list, as I usually do, and I was going through it, and almost all the movies I've actually seen after the year 2000, which was quite a few. Hunger Games and Alita Battle Angel were genuinely the best ones, and I'm not a huge fan of Hunger Games in particular.
Right.
And Battle Angel felt like it was just barely up. There's just the
it's a subplot, really.
Yeah. I imagine if they do get to make a sequel, that they'll make that the standard plot, because that was the second arc in the comics.
I was going to say, you've read the manga, so you know what it is.
Yeah, they're super good. Yeah. It's super good. So, yeah, we've narrowed it down to 3, basically, which is The 10th Victim, Death Race 2000, the original Death Race, and The Running Man, which, The Running Man, it feels like a little bit mainstream for what I usually do on the podcast, but again, it's sort of like one of the things that inspired this is that in my brain I was pretending that Death Race 2000, The Running Man, and Hunger Games all took place in the same canon, and that there's just many years between them. Like the Hunger Games takes place like in the far off future after the Running Man, after this whole thing is evolved beyond. So it's an interesting thing because again, politics comes into basically all of it, and I like that, and I like that this seems to be a subgenre where filmmakers and storytellers are not afraid to be really political. And I guess it's that whole thing where when you're doing sci-fi, you're allowed to be allegorical in your
Right,
politics.
right.
But all three of these movies are pretty out with their messages, even if they're satirical in nature. And so I like that about them.
I found it interesting that the 10th victim, there seemed to be no real, in the 10th victim of the three, there was no real rebellion against the system with that. Like, it seemed like it's a therapeutical thing that we're all doing and it keeps us from engaging in actual warfare. So, like, this is
Right.
the price we pay for our relatively utopian society. Whereas, like the world of 10th victim comes across as utopia with a butt. And
Yeah.
the other two are just straight dystopias where,
Yeah.
the crux of the plot is trying to topple the organizers of the games, which I thought was very interesting because you think that the 10th victim being the oldest one, that it would lay down some templates, but it's quite different from the other two.
Yeah. Well, and it's also interesting because the 10th victim was the earliest one I could find. I don't know if that's definitive, but it came out in '65,
Right.
and I suppose if you go back beyond the '50s, there was not a lot of television anyway, so there wouldn't have been. So it felt like it was a good place to start. But yeah, what's interesting about that is the director Elio Petri is I think all three of these filmmakers are probably left-leaning people politically, but Elio Petri was a card-carrying
Oh,
communist,
right.
and most of his other movies have some sort of definitive communist slant to them. So it's kind of funny that his ends up being the one where they're just sort of poking fun at the idea of this utopian
Yeah, right.
future full of idiots rather than dystopian future. I should. Oh, so yeah. The 10th victim. It's an Italian movie. La decima vittima.
Decima.
I think I'm saying that right. Vittima.
Decima. The C is a ch. Decima.
Oh, decima vittima. Oh,
Vittima.
jeez. See, this is why you're. This is the real reason.
I just needed some.
I needed someone who could tell me how to pronounce the Italian. It's loosely based on a 1953 short story called "The Seventh Victim." I don't know why they changed it to 10. By Robert Sheckley.
They probably changed it because it would sound silly. It would be La Settima Vittima.
Oh, it would be like
a rhyme or a punny
okay.
looking sounding type of thing.
Yeah, I guess I don't think about that. Yeah, when language barriers become a issue.
That's why you have me
that
on
sounds
this
stupid.
show.
We gotta change it to 10. This is dumb. Nobody will watch this. From what I could tell, and I always say this, I am not a literary expert, even like remotely. Basically, I'm functionally illiterate. But from what I can tell, the seventh victim is kind of the Rosetta Stone for these movies and these stories in general. And it has it's like the first book I could find that has government subsidized murder games. But it sounds like the kind of high concept thing that sci-fi would have been doing since the beginning of time. But this is the earliest one I could find with seventh victim. So it ends up being like actually shows up as a sort of basis for a lot of these movies. I think it's valuable to guess the earliest version of this type of story if you're one of the always online types like myself, because then you can smugly end arguments in which books are ripping off who. Because like when the Hunger Games came out, there was that whole what do you call battle royale, or what do you call Hunger Games? It's battle royale with cheese or something like that. Like it was like a Pulp Fiction reference because they're accusing basically hoity nerds were accusing Hunger Games of ripping off battle royale when the two actually have very little in common. And the Hunger Games is much more likely ripping off Running Man or Death Race 2000 or The Seventh Victim.
I would
could
say that
imagine.
Battle Royale is a lot more like Seventh Victim because, like, you send one class a year to keep the peace amongst the youths, kind of.
And the only people who seem to notice this is terrible are the students involved, and I guess the teacher. He's pretty jaded at this point, but yeah. So yeah. If anybody ever wants to start this argument, you can actually them with actually they're all the seventh victim, and then you'll get pantsed and swirlied, but you still win the argument.
They're all based on the movie that also inspired Austin Powers.
Yeah, so this is a very groovy movie, and that's I think where most people come to it with either knowing that it inspired Austin Powers in particular, or as seeing like an ad with how very 1965 it is with like its fashions and its mod architectures and just how it's silly in a very 60s way. And fortunately, not a very Italian way, which it's great because Italian comedies from the 60s are acquired taste, to say the least. There's very few scenes of like breasts shaking in the camera and the camera panning over to a guy with bug eyes going, "What?"
Maroon.
It's a little more dry-witted than that. Mostly, I mean, that's part of the joke is that everybody's sort of nonplussed about everything.
Right.
That like the people are running around on the street killing each other, and the cops just sort of wander up and say, "Hey, what's going on there?" And they just say that they're part of. They show their badge, and the cop goes, "Oh, get on with it." There's a really quality joke where the guy murders a guy, shows his badge, and then the cop says, "Oh yeah, but is that your car? You're illegally parked."
Yeah.
I thought that was a quality joke for me.
I like the one where the waiter or the restaurant owner is just like complaining about all the murders that are happening. Like, you can't eat. God, people don't respect. Oh no, wait,
Yeah.
it was the guy who was complaining like, oh, you can't shoot people in such and such zones. Like he was the guy complaining about you can't smoke anywhere anymore. Like.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good gag as well. I like that the main guy, Marcello Mastroianni's like side gig was, I'm a cult leader. Like with like they're just
Sun worshippers.
Yeah, like walking into the sunset and him just cynically admitting, yeah, I don't believe in it, but it earns me $1 and it makes these people happy. So, like,
yeah, well, and what's crazy about it is, again, this is before there was the big New Age thing that happened, and so it's sort of like a lot of this movie kind of predicts things. So like yeah, the sun worshippers feel like what are they called? The people who tried to live on just air. I can't remember what they're called. The breathal. I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, yeah, there's people like try to just live on air, or recently they had the people trying to absorb sunlight through their buttholes. Was a thing like 2 years ago. It's like this movie predicted it all. There's also sort of social media stalkingness to it because the Ursula Andress character. It seems like television is not necessarily a part of this game initially, but that as it's gone on, there's become more and more sponsorships, which I guess is definitely something that's in the Hunger Games as a sponsorship thing. That's a big. But so there's sponsorships, and so Ursula Andress's character actually has a crew follow her and record everything, and they're trying to set up a big kill. So she's basically social media stalking. Mastroianni. Mastroianni. Oh, geez, I feel stupid saying it with that accent. I feel like I'm just butchering it. Anyway, we'll call him Marcel. It's even though it's Marcello.
Hey, you got that one right at least.
Yeah, I got that one right. So they're trying to set up like a event, and so that's I was saying that as social media stalking, but it's also like reality TV was definitely not a
Yeah,
thing
right.
in 1965. Like a lot of it is sort of creepily prescient. Unfortunately, not the style. I kind of wish that we had some of those clothes out in our public view,
Oh, yeah.
especially the outfit that because Marcello has a wife that he is sort of divorced in the process of divorcing, and then a sort of beau. I don't know what the female equivalent is. This woman who's decided that she's like next in line.
Right.
I like her outfits a lot. But then it's also sort of a love story with Ursula Andress's character, who they're meant to kill each other. So
And they get flowers shot at them at the end, or I don't. What was?
yeah, I guess it could also sort of be like a like if you want to ignore the political implications and the sort of creepy people watching death on TV implications. It's also sort of like a really roundabout metaphor for the difficulty of dating. It, which might have been why it was popular, because I mean there's some reasonably misogynistic stuff going on, but
Yeah, him. I don't know if you saw my share on Facebook with like him telling her, "Here in Italy, we believe in the patriarchal family."
oh yeah, that's
like shaking her.
that's part two is it's implied that people reach a certain age and they are either killed or put away
Yeah,
somewhere. It's so he's hidden
his
his
parents.
mother and father in like the walls of his house.
And she thinks it's all unsavory and whatnot, and he's like, no.
Yeah. But I guess it's only in certain countries. Like, yeah, so he's saying, so she's is she supposed to be American now? I can't remember, because
I think so.
she's not
She's not Swedish.
she's not
Or,
playing an
yeah.
Austrian or whatever Ursula Andress actually is. I can't remember which. Yeah, so there's like a little bit of that sort of like in this country we've instituted these rules, but the big hunt seems to be a Italy specific thing.
Yeah, um the the Big Hunt computer was in Switzerland, I believe.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The weird Swiss computer.
Like it's like
This.
the victim is Marcello Mastroianni. Like there,
Yeah.
the computer is like the computer is expressing that data in audio format while there is
Right.
no one around the computer to hear.
And I mean, it looks good too. Oh, and then another thing that like kind of ties into that and the look is that there are announcements, public propaganda announcements in the background of some scenes, which you see in the Running Man too. But it sort of feels like I don't know when Heavy Metal or magazine or what was Judge Dredd's in
2080.
2080. I don't know how far back those go, but it like really reminded me of something like Judge Dredd or like RoboCop, which is sort of taking off from Judge Dredd.
Right.
But like is this one of the things that like inspired that whole sort of like really dire public announcements, but everybody's just ignoring it because it's everyday stuff,
Heavy Metal
like the commercials in
started in
RoboCop.
74.
Okay, so yeah, maybe this is one of the first things that does that, because I don't know how you really express that I guess in a short story, because a lot of early sci-fi is like novellas and shorts. I guess you can express that in the background something, but it's never as funny if it's not just sort of background noise that you can miss the first time you watch it. Why? Yeah, like one of the things says, "Why control births when we can increase deaths?"
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote a note here. Old people are handed over to the state. It doesn't necessarily say that they're killed,
Okay.
but yeah, there's that dystopian element. But I think that's kind of the joke, is that it's actually really depressing, but it's so pretty and colorful, and everybody's having a good time
Yeah.
that you don't notice.
It's kind of like the Star Wars universe that is also in a state of
Yeah.
perpetual galactic war, but everybody seems to be having a good time.
Yeah, it's like being the wealthy person in the empire who doesn't actually have to deal with any of this. like was it Bite people?
Yeah.
They don't care about anything going on. So yeah, maybe just out of frame there is some like really scary slums or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to actually go film in actual slums because I don't think they did a lot of like set dressing for this movie. It was basically
No,
just Rome. It was basically just
yeah,
um 'cause I,
yeah. They even try to set the thing in the what's it called, the gladiatorial
arena, yeah, the Colosseum,
arena, the Coliseum. Yeah.
because the setup by the
Um,
reality TV guys was, what was it, in the Roman baths or something, or the Temple of Venus or
hmm
whatnot. The
Oh yeah, it's Temple of
Yeah.
Venus. Yep, that's right. I guess yeah,
Um,
and then they set up a whole thing because she is sponsored by Ming Tea,
the
and so they have like a whole dance and
Ming T, the band Mike Myers started. That was a '60s. I don't know if it was a cover band,
yeah.
but
I've actually never heard them, but yeah. So for Austin Powers he took kind of the style of this movie and the fembots that have machine guns in their bras. There is a character who has a machine gun in her bra at the beginning of the movie. He took that and then yeah he named his band Ming T.
they Myers performs with his band in Goldmember.
Oh, he does. You know what? I've never seen Goldmember.
I I shamefully enjoy all Austin Powers movies.
I should say when your last name is
Right?
Powers, you kind of fucking hate those movies. But specifically because they came out when I had just become an adult and could get my own card at Blockbuster
Hmm.
Video. And I swear to God, every time I went in, and this would have been like 1999, some asshole would say, "Oh, Mr. Powers, did you rent Austin Powers today?" It just was nonstop. Every time I went in, some asshole would make that joke.
I've got your Swedish penis pump, Mr. Powers.
Mr. Powers. And it's like, shut up. I
I never even
want to rent
considered
Fight
that.
Club or something. Yeah. But no, I never did see the third one. So that's the actual band. That's funny. Yeah, I mean the style again. The the every room they're in. And it's really funny watching this back to back with Death Race 2000 because it feels like in Italy 1965 you just had to find these rooms that were decorated with
Cool
outrageous
mod rooms,
super
yeah.
yeah, the cool mod rooms were just existing, and then by the 75 or whatever it is that the Death Race 2000 comes out, and you're working on your Roger Corman level budget. You try to do that, but it really just always ends up looking like a warehouse room with like two lamps and a bed.
God, that opening crowd scene with like the with like the actual like crayon added monorail that passes by.
Yes, and the mat's shifting
Yeah,
constantly. Yeah,
I think this is the
I'm trying.
earliest Stallone movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah. Are we going into 2000? Okay, I guess I should have made that a actual. I wasn't even meaning for that to be a what do you call it,
A
a transition.
segue.
Well, okay, a
Everything's a
segue.
transition with me, baby.
Yeah. I'll just say one more thing about 10th Victim is that Elio Petri is a really interesting, weird
Oh.
filmmaker. Again, he was a card carrying member of the Communist
Hmm.
Party. It said on Wikipedia he left after the Hungarian
Hmm.
uprising. So he either was probably either pro or anti
Hmm.
Soviet. I don't know exactly what that, but
Probably
he
anti,
has,
because
yeah, that would be my guess. But he made two really cool movies that kind of get categorized as giallo movies, but aren't quite. One is A Quiet Place in the Country, which is Franco Nero movie that's basically just a bunch of S&M, but it's really like it's really exploring the relationships between men and women, and then Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion, which is like one of those movies that comes with a Criterion seal of approval about cop who's investigating murder that he's done,
mhm.
so he's just faking his way through
Right,
it.
right.
And then he did the only other comedy of his I've seen was Property is No Longer
Mhm.
Theft, which isn't exactly subtle when you say just the title alone is just a series of vignettes about a guy sort of getting down on capitalism. But pretty much all of them have this sort of air of misogyny that I can't quite tell is genuine misogyny or a comment on the prevalence of misogyny in Italian cinema. So I don't know. I don't know how good I feel suggesting people go watch all his movies. I think Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion is like definitively good, and I think this one's definitively good. And I don't think you have to feel too bad about them.
No, I think Tenth Victim does not contain any more misogyny than your classic Star Trek episode. Really.
Yeah.
I actually think that in terms of like the '60s movies, the '70s movies we watched for this podcast, they are okay. Like Death Race is a '70s movie, so that's always a that's always a risky territory to go into, '70s genre film. But I was like, I've definitely seen worse. Women do shit in Death Race. Women do shit in Tenth Victim. I guess there's a bit of the like sort of naggy ex-wife thing going on in Tenth.
Yeah, that they kind of take it to an extreme where she's murderous. I also think that Ursula Andress is really good in 10th Victim and probably the best. I mean, I guess the Dr. No fans will not want to hear it, but I think this is her best performance I've ever seen.
I mean, saying that Dr. No is her best performance is like saying Kirsten Dunst's best performance was in Spider-Man. That's not
exactly.
It wasn't exactly a meaty role to bite into,
Yeah, she's sort of a mannequin, and she as like the first Bond girl. Right. But she's actually quite funny in this. And I think she dubbed herself on the English cut because
cool.
She actually had an accent, so that was nice. But yeah, we'll move on to Death Race 2000, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. Probably, but when I say that, I mean like top 100 maybe. But it's one of the.
It's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Maybe
it's in the top 100. Okay, Jesus. Most people don't even know 100 movies.
Yeah, it's true, and it's really sad, but it's true. Follow me on Letterboxd to get all 100 of my favorite. But it's a movie I saw at the perfect age. I think I was like 16 when I first saw it, and it's the idea behind it is that there is a race across the country every year, but the real point of the race isn't to win the race; it's to hit as many people with your cars and kill them as you can, and the whole thing's televised, and it's a really big event. And what like the super edgy jokes that like babies are worth more points than adult men. That kind of stuff really appeals to a 15, 16-year-old. But then as I got older, I started to like recognize the sort of satire of the whole thing. And so I think it works. I think it kind of works on both levels. I know you weren't as big of a fan as I am of it, but I'm willing to forgive you.
I laughed a couple of times, though. I mean, I do think that you're very right in that, you see it at 16, 17, that's the ideal age for it to hit you with, And I remember being 16, 17, and there was this sort of, what do you call it? The late night movies with a late night movie host. They'd show you, I don't know what that particular type of program is called.
We got Svengoolie is the big one here in the Midwest.
Right. We had a local director who turned out to be a right-wing douchebag as the horror host. Great. So, as tends to happen in movie nerd circles. But that guy's TV show did, show me some old Roger Corman shit, and I guess it just sort of never. Death Race 2000 was what it would have been one of those types of movies that he would have shown. It just never happened to be on, I guess, or I must have missed that episode or whatever. But seeing Death Race 2000 made me think of that horror host show that was on when I was 16. And
were they allowed to show nudity on television?
Yeah, but it was like at 11 o'clock on Fridays, so like you you could. It was cable though. It was.
It was
Yeah.
cable. I only asked because I actually have seen the Death Race 2000 on network television, and they don't cut any of the violence.
All the
But
boobies are.
yeah, the scene where they're all getting back
Yeah.
massages, instead of blurring it, they just zoom into their faces. It's the strangest censorship I've ever seen in a movie. So it's just these intense close-ups, and they're really blurry because it's a really wide shot otherwise. Anyway,
And it was kind of funny that, like, I think around by the end of the second act, I realized that, hey, wait a minute, I've seen almost every woman's boobies that is in this
yeah,
movie.
yeah, and sometimes it's really it's not even like in like most of the Corman movies that we're going to show breasts would be like, let's focus on these breasts. We need to
Right.
make sure the audience is seeing them. It's sort of
Hmm.
casual. In Death Race 2000, they just happen to be
It's
nude.
like in Starship Troopers or RoboCop, where
Yeah,
or here is a non-erotic situation in which everyone is nude together, which is pretty
yeah,
cool. But I mean,
yeah.
the reason, of course, is to get boobies in your exploitation movie. But
It,
but it was
but
presented pretty well, like that.
yeah.
It didn't. It's like, oh, here's a random shower scene, as one would expect from. And this was
I sus-
sorry.
I was gonna say I suspect that Corman flat out said you need to have this many breasts in this movie.
I read some random trivia. Apparently, Corman wrote it as a straight thriller, and then he was like, this is too grim. And when he turned it into a comedy, I was like, yeah, this works.
Yeah, well, he hired Paul Bartel to
Right.
direct, and I think that's the reason it works beyond its basic premise.
Hmm.
Because Bartel is very funny. He was in a lot of those Corman New World movies. He's in this movie as Frankenstein. Frankenstein is the sort of he's this legendary character who drives and he wears all leather, and he's played by David Carradine. And the idea is that he's been rebuilt all these times, but in reality they just keep
Right.
replacing
Right.
him. But Paul Bartel shows up as his doctor in one scene,
Hmm.
and he's in Rock and Roll High School as the, I believe he's a science teacher who likes heavy metal or the rock music. And then later he made a non-Corman movie called Eating Raoul that is one of my favorite movies about a really stuffy couple that keeps killing their neighbors because they're swingers. They don't like the swingers in their apartment complex.
So they keep killing their
But
neighbors because they're swingers. How many neighbors are there?
because the neighbors are swingers, they just keep getting in situations where they're angry. They're like, it's kind of like in Hot Fuzz. It's like that kind
Yeah,
of
right.
idea where you have they're just ruining the
Right. Hmm.
neighborhood, so you have to kill
Right.
them. It's that kind of that idea. But if instead of this well organized cabal, it was too kind of not really great at killing people. Paul Bartel and then Mary Orenoff, who plays Calamity Jane in
Right.
this.
Right.
The two of them are the couple.
Oh,
I
that's
love
cute.
her. But yeah, so I wrote down. I just called the seventh victim the Rosetta Stone of these movies. Well, there was actually a book shortly after by a former World War II U.S. counterintelligence officer named Ib Melchior or Melchior. I'm not sure how you'd say that. It was called The Racer, and it was released just after the seventh victim. So it's also kind of another Rosetta Stone, I guess, because technically Corman bought the rights to The
Hmm.
Racer, but then didn't really use it because then he handed it off to Bartel, and I guess Bartel made a straight comedy, and they argued a lot, and Corman changed a lot of things as he usually does. And Bartel is actually in interviews was pretty disappointed with the final result. So I just imagine maybe they balanced each other out. Maybe the Bartel version would have been too
Hmm.
wacky, and maybe the Corman version would have been too exploitative. And so the between the two of them, they got something weird and kind of original. I think the same thing happened with Ravenous, which is another one of my favorite movies, where there was like three directors and the studio cut a bunch of it out, and I just feel like it was one of those situations where all the interference ended up working out in its favor
I didn't
somehow.
even know that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a really, Antonio Bird was brought on to fix it basically after they fired 2 other directors.
Oh, okay. At least
Yeah.
they didn't throw her off.
No, yeah, she was brought on. Robert Carlyle had just worked with her, and apparently, like he basically made her do it. He's like, "Come
I'll
on."
be your friend.
So anyway, Death Race 2000. Yeah, so the basic joke is that you're running people over and you're getting points for killing people, and there are these really over the top personalities, and it's like, as you were saying, it's a really cheap movie. It has these opening credits that are like teenager pencil drawings, and I found out watching the extras. I'd never watched the extras on my Blu-ray until now. They were drawn by the costume designer who had no experience doing either thing. They just brought her on, and she ended up doing both things. I think the costumes are kind of cool,
Yeah, I
honestly.
mean that's not a thing that I would have like. Yeah, they're tacky, but I think as sort of American gladiators to the extreme, that those are appropriately tacky outfits that they're wearing. They're gimmicky wrestling heel dues. So yeah, so good job if
Yeah,
she'd never done that before.
yeah. I think that, and I think that the car designs are actually, you can tell they're like wood and
Right,
plywood
right.
and paint when you look at them closely, but they're still pretty cool considering that Corman didn't want to put any money into it. You
Hmm.
know, I like Stallone's car the most. With it's got like
The Tommy guns
uh,
in it.
Tommy guns, yeah, and then is his have the, I can't remember which one has the big knife on it.
Yeah, it does have. Yeah.
His does too. Yeah, yeah. And then Frankenstein's car is kind of like a dragon, I
Hmm.
guess. His is probably the least cool,
Hmm.
I would say, but it's still pretty cool. I'd say that works, and I'd say that they get, like I was making fun of their sets being kind of lame, which they are. They really do look like conference rooms that they put a couple things in. Uh, but the driving scenes are, you can tell they speed ramped
Hmm.
it to make it look faster than it
Right.
was, but they're pretty impressive
Hmm.
stunts as far as the driving goes. It seems like they actually were like skirting the lines of like there's certain union rules that they were sort of going around because it was sort of dangerous in
Right, right,
reality,
right.
and they had the actors actually driving themselves. Stallone and
Oh,
Carradine have
really?
both said they did a lot of their own driving. It was genuinely dangerous, which is always fun in retrospect. Like, well, yeah, the airplane scene. There's a scene where this little tiny weird plane is dropping bombs on Frankenstein's car,
Yeah.
and it looks really really dangerous. Like someone could have died. So I thought that was funny. But
Was that was that the rebel who that rebel who decided to break off with the plan, or like was that a rogue
yeah,
decision that I'm gonna bomb Frankenstein now, or I, that was not part of the plan, I
I
think, if I remember correctly.
yeah no I well okay so. Again, the more times I watch this movie, the more different ways things I get out of it, which is something you can do with movies that had no meaning to begin with. I admit, but it's clearly making fun of this authoritative like fascist
Hmm.
environment where like it's like the 1984 thing where they're always at war and they're just saying they're always at war, and they like people basically pray to the
Hmm.
president, and they keep making up, like every time something goes wrong they blame the French even though the French are not there because they don't want the public to understand that there's a genuine rebellion against this.
Right.
So that stuff's all really obvious. But then at the same time, I feel like it's making fun of the sort of American liberal resistance thing because they're led by this woman who just speaks in like these patriotic platitudes and always has an American flag behind
Hmm.
her. It is sort of dressed like Christine, who's the person who sewed the original American flag.
Betsy Ross.
She sort of, yeah. Oh, you knew it. See, I was like, American. I have to ask another American, but no. Apparently, I'm just the idiot who doesn't know anything on history.
American pop culture
Anyway,
has completely,
that's
yeah.
true. That's true. I just felt like I can't assume that American pop culture.
I know who
Anyway,
fucking Paul
anyway,
Revere is, so.
everybody knows Paul. Yeah, because he has a great song
Oh, yeah,
named after.
exactly.
Anyway, she's this like hyper Americana thing, and her whole stance is that we have to send a strongly worded letter. Like her plan is to kidnap the president, or no, to kidnap
Yeah.
Frankenstein and not give him back unless the president promises to do certain things, and they're really weak shit things.
They want the president to do better.
Yeah, basically that's what it comes down to. And then her underlings obviously hate it, and they keep trying to pull off genuine like they're not very good at it. They do kill quite a few of the guys though, so I guess they're not terrible at it. They're not
Yeah, because
completely
like
bad.
it's not like Frankenstein kills any of them. I think they kill most of them.
Yeah, Frankenstein survives the bombing,
Uh-huh.
but he doesn't exactly kill the
Right.
guy.
Which is kind of
And then
weird if you think about it, because like if you have a
yeah,
death race, um, even going into it without any presumptions, you would think that the other contestants are pretty much fair game. But at no point do the racers actually target each other, huh? As far as I remember.
there's just the one time when Matilda the Hun's navigator is fixing something, and the Nazi woman runs him over.
Oh, yeah, because,
But
yeah,
they
right.
established that the two of them really hate each other.
Well, they are two women, so.
Yeah, I suppose. It really is very upsetting that the Nazi woman has some of the funniest lines in the movie.
Yeah, it's always terrible when, like, and she's really hot, too.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck. This
At one
overtly
point
Nazi lady is funny and hot.
she says, "I've come up with the final solution to mouthy cowgirls." I think that's the best line in the whole movie. But I hated it. That I like that,
I
but
was
it's true.
partial to, that's right, it's a hand grenade.
Yes. So the big reveal is that Frankenstein has his own plan to kill the president, and so his plan's a little bit more genuinely
Direct
revolutionary.
action gets the goods.
Yeah, but he's not working with anybody. So there's this whole. I feel like in a more serious movie, there would be a real moral push and pull between him trying not to kill revolutionaries because he's on their side, but he can't let them know he's on their
Right.
side. But then he's also running over nurses at the old folks home, which is another one of my favorite jokes.
I
Is
like that
just
that
this.
announcer went like, well, I guess those doctors have been getting a little too smug in the recent years.
Yeah, and they have what they call it, like or it's euthanasia day at the geriatric home. And they just wheel all the old people in, and they just sit there quietly. And then he doesn't run them over; he runs over all the nurses instead. And the TV people are always there. It's always playing it like it's something that comes up in The Running Man too. Is that people are so ingrained in this horrible culture of television death sport that that like at one point Grace Pander, which again is a great name, Grace Pander visits the widow of Frankenstein's first kill and gives her a bunch of like game show prizes. And so she's crying about her dead husband, but also excited that she's being like handed a TV and stuff. I I feel like that's like way on the nose, but in a good way. Like sometimes I like those really on the nose jokes like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that it is sort of. I don't know how. I don't really know Bartel's politics. He seemed like he was kind of an artsy guy, so he was probably pretty well left leaning. So I feel like he was trying to make fun of both. I think that it's one of those cases where it's easy to make fun of the most extreme bad people than because the movie ends with Frankenstein not really affecting much change. Like the death race is ending, but it kind of sounds like there's still going to be kind of a shitty. He just sort of gets replaced as president. And I remember one of our Facebook friends, I don't remember who it was, kind of thinking that felt like they were defeating the point of the movie. But I think the point of the movie is that the solution isn't much better than the way things already are. But I might just be reading it that way because of the last 5 years of politics in
I,
this
I
country.
thought that the ending was very fun. I mean, I thought that the ending was very funny because, like, he kills the president. He drives into the stage, which apparently makes him president.
Yeah, that's how you get president.
and then
That's actually how it works
okay,
today.
right,
Like
right.
that's why. Yeah, that's why we have a secret service, is to keep people from running into the president and taking his job.
That's why the Pope has that glass car.
Yeah, the Pope has that car that's basically a Mad Max car. If it needs to, it will demolition derby the shit out of all the attempted assassins.
The would-be popes.
Yep,
So, like,
yep.
he becomes the president because he killed the president, and then he's like, "All right, chaps, no more death racing," and everyone's like, "Oh man," and like, "Nope, that's what I said. No more death racing." Oh well, I
And
guess because if you say so, Mr. President, and then that one flaming homo guy is like, "No, we gotta keep death racing. It's
we gotta.
it's the fucking American way." And then they go like, shut up. Oh, just one more time for old time's sake. Let's kill this guy who wants to
Yeah,
keep. So I thought it was a sort of hilariously upbeat ending. Like,
but there is the indication that he's put. I cannot remember her name, unfortunately. The the woman who was leading the resistance, she's in charge, and now that she's in charge, what if someone? They ask, well, what if someone doesn't like this? And then she says, well, they can just leave the country then. And so now that she's in charge, she's sort of just being the same shit,
yeah,
different
but
person. But
what if someone doesn't like this? Refers to the absence of a death race.
I suppose. Okay, you're reading it much more positive than I
Yeah.
did. Okay, all right,
Like,
all right. We'll be upbeat about it.
that's basically how I would do revolution. Like, hey, universal basic income for everyone. What if someone doesn't like it? Well,
Yeah,
fuck off.
go away then. You don't get any.
Yeah,
Fine, give
exactly.
it. Yeah, okay, all right. I guess I'm so used to like reading the darkness into every fucking movie I
Yeah,
watch.
but like I was
Like,
expecting that with the type of movie it
yeah,
had been up until that point. I was
yeah,
kind of blown over by how almost cartoonishly positive that ending was.
yeah. I suppose. Okay, all right. I'll see it that way then.
You don't
Uh,
you don't gotta.
the
I'm just saying.
No, I will. I will though. I think it makes it. It honestly makes it funnier that it doesn't end on a bad note,
Like,
because that would
Frankenstein is
seem too
so
obvious.
popular that if you have a society in which people are just cuckoo for death races, that means
Yeah,
they're very violent people, very very a real rabble to be roused. but
yeah,
Frankenstein is just
yeah.
so popular that he just goes, no more death racing, and they're all, oh, okay then. And I thought that was funny.
Did we mention that he had the hand? Said the
Yeah,
hand
right,
grenade
right,
joke, right? We mentioned that. Okay, I couldn't remember if we mentioned that. That's like at once the most beloved and hated thing in the whole movie is the hand grenade
People
joke.
hate that.
Oh, people hate puns.
Oh God!
People get
I
mad at
mean, this is
puns.
a really overtly cheesy movie. Why would you hate?
Well, again, it was funny watching it back to back with then the
Yeah,
Running Man, because this feels like a real Reagan era movie
right, right,
to me. But it was actually, I mean, I guess I had to keep in mind it was probably written and even made during the end of
right. I was gonna say
Nixon's.
Nixon. Yeah.
So it's really an anti-Nixon thing, because nobody would make an anti-Gerald Ford movie. Nobody cares about Gerald Ford.
About Homer.
um, yeah, no, nobody gives a fuck, and also nobody would do a Jimmy Carter. You really have to have these beloved and hated characters like Nixon and Reagan. It feels really on the nose for a lot of the stuff that happened in the Reagan era, as far as the way TV is used and the game showness of
Right,
it
right.
all. The fact that just everything's played for laughs, and like it's all
Mm.
fine and war is good times, but we also prated our president. That kind of
Oh, I
stuff.
thought it
All
was
sort of.
funny that the first time we see the president, he's like in this weird golden light atop this
Mm-hmm.
pyramid, this ziggurat in this vaguely.
Mm-hmm.
I think they say he's in Tokyo or in Osaka or something. Uh,
Yeah, he's visiting
right,
something. They
yeah,
don't.
and like he's almost like Zool on the
Uh
or
huh.
like
Uh
Gozer
huh.
on the temple, and this weirdly unspecified, cloudy, misty half realm. But then at the end of the race, he just shows up on a scaffolding.
He just shows up. Yeah. Yeah, you'd think that the God King president would just do a video
Yeah,
call
right. He
if
just
he
shows
could.
up to be hit by a dragon car.
Yep. Yeah. I want to also reiterate how good the cast
Mhm.
is. Because again, one of my favorites, Mary Warnerov, Warrenov, Warner. That's a hard to say name. That's a lot of O's in a
Mary
row.
Warnow.
Warrenov. This time she gets to play kind of secretly sexy good guy instead of a secretly sexy villain, which is pretty much what she always played, like really tall villainous women in the Corman movies
Hmm.
she was in. And then you got David Carradine, who's sort of in David Carradine fashion, both terrible and perfect. Like it, it apparently like he was an absolute diva on the
Oh
set, and
gosh.
people did not like him because he was just coming off of Kung
Uh huh.
Fu, like to the point where he refused to wear leather. So the poor woman who had never made costumes before had to find something that photographed like leather, but that wasn't leather.
Hmm.
And at one point, he got fired for screaming at her, and Corman backed her up. And then he apologized with flowers, which sort of sounds like something David Carradine would do. Oh, that's right. He sang to them. He serenaded them. Yeah, which is even more David Carradine. Then you got Don Steele, who is like the host of the whole thing, who's like the Stan Lee of Corman movies. He just shows up in everything. He's also the host in Rock and Roll High School and a couple other things. The really smiley
Uh-huh.
dude with the glasses. And then you got he's not in it very long, but you got Martin Kove of
Sensei
Karate Kid and
Kreese.
Cobra Kai fame. Yeah, narcissistic Nero the hero, very very clearly gay coded character.
He's still kicking.
But
He's
Stallone
still they're giving him very politely cut uh, fight scenes on Cobra Kai.
fights. I haven't watched any of Cobra Kai because I never liked Karate Kid, and everybody keeps insisting I watch it.
Oh, I won't do that.
You can do it. I just always remember I just didn't like the Karate Kid movies. I don't know what was wrong with me. I was a bad child. I think came out that exact time when everybody literally joined karate schools, and it just sounded like too much work for me.
That sounds like the typical fucking nerd thing you do.
Yep, exactly. Oh, karate's cool. Wait, I have to do what? Nah,
I'm just gonna
I
tape
just watch
these horror
cartoons.
specials off TV.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, oh, but Stallone really is fucking great.
This is the
Like he's
douchiest I've ever seen Stallone.
yeah,
He's such a
he's
scumbag. I've never seen him so villainous.
yeah. There's certain scenes that make you a little uncomfortable because he's like being abusive towards
Yeah,
women,
right.
kind of reminding us that we're not supposed to only laugh at
Hmm.
his evil, but then he'll like kill people that aren't characters, and it will be very funny. And he apparently wrote a lot of his own
Oh,
lines
oh, yeah,
because he
because like that reminds me, when he's like choking out Annie and Frankenstein comes to save her.
hmm
He has a line. He says something like, "What does it feel like to spend the rest of your life in pain? The next 90
yeah.
seconds." And
Yeah, which will only be about 90
that is
seconds.
a line that he must have written, that he must have been very impressed by, because in Demolition Man, he says, "You're gonna regret that the rest of your life, both seconds of it."
That's funny because Demolition Man is sort of in line with these. It doesn't have anything to do with Death Sport,
That's a
but it's
dystopian,
sort of the
funny, yeah.
same kind of satirical
Right,
dystopia
right.
that we're talking about here. That's yeah. I barely remember that movie, but he also has the line that I hope he wrote where he says, some people might think you're cute, but I think you're just a great big baked potato. And it's like this nonsense line that it's so
Yeah,
funny.
that actually sounds like that is sly energy, I would say.
I also really respect that you can tell how short he is in this movie.
Yes.
Like,
Before he could
when he
make
becomes a
director,
star,
yeah.
he always is on apple boxes and stuff. But like, you could tell he's like genuinely smaller than David Carradine. Because like, if you think in your mind's eye, yeah, of course Sylvester Stallone could beat the crap out of David Carradine. But if you actually see the two of them standing next to each other in real life, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I can see how this. But it really works for the character because he's like bigger than he is.
Mhm.
Like he's always overcompensating for
Right,
everything,
right,
and he only ever hurts people with his car or women. Like he's
right, right.
never really standing up against people like that are bigger than
Mhm,
him. Yeah, he's very good at
mhm.
it. Um, so there was a remake
Oh yeah.
from our boy Paul W.S. Anderson. I hate to say it. I think it's his weakest
Right, right.
movie. I think that and Soldier are the only two Paul W.S. Anderson movies that I kind of think are boring.
Mhm,
Like, I can understand why people hate his movies, but other than those two, they're always really entertaining.
mhm.
And there was like some sort of I remember when they were talking about it way back in the day when like Tom Cruise was going to star instead of Jason Statham, when it was like a much bigger deal of a
Mhm.
movie, and he was describing all these ideas they had where like they had to, it was like a video game where they were driving cross country and they had to cross certain uh some, I don't know, like you'd have to cross like on a pinball machine, you'd have to cross certain lights at a certain
Right,
time to get the points. So the race part was also
right.
important. So it was still a cross country race, but you know, I think yeah, they just didn't have the budget, so they shrunk it down. They didn't want to spend the money
Mhm,
on it, and it sort of just takes place in a prison
mhm,
instead. It's not quite the level. It's and you know, maybe I guess some people say it's supposed to be like kind of a prequel. I don't really see it that way, but I guess
mhm.
so, sort of. I don't know. Do you like the Paul Anderson one?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm trying to remember. I have a lot of. I remember what's his name being really good as like the mechanic.
Ian McShane.
Uh, yeah, Ian
Yeah,
McShane.
yeah.
But like I always remember Ian McShane being good in everything I've ever seen him in. So I don't know if I can trust that
He's
memory.
like Peter
It's been a
Cushing. He
while.
will star in absolute shit, but he's usually pretty good at it.
Yeah, yeah, he's going to be there for it. There was an official sequel in 2017 called Death Race 2050, which I have not watched, that Corman put together.
There,
Um,
an official sequel to the 2000, you mean? Yeah, okay.
yeah, an official sequel to this movie. There were three sequels to the W.S. Anderson
Yeah, and they
movie.
were all
They were
prequels, I
mostly straight to
believe.
video. They just kept on going back in
Yeah,
time.
because like
Nice.
I've seen the first one, or I've seen the first sequel to the Anderson one,
Uh huh.
because I was teaching, and back when I was teaching, and one of the kids had it with him on a USB stick, and I was like, yeah, sure, we've got a spare hour, why not? It was I was actually someone had some other teacher had fallen ill, and I had to just kind of I wasn't supposed
Fill
I
the
wasn't falling
space.
in for that teacher, but they just needed supervision while they were,
They needed an adult human in the room.
exactly. And someone
Yeah.
said, "Hey, I have Death Race on USB stick." I was like, "Put it on."
Let's do it.
And it turns out it was Death Race 2, and I was like, "Oh, this is the direct-to-video sequel of the Paul W.S. Anderson remake, starring Luke Goss, the boy band."
Oh, I love Luke Goss. Luke Goss is
And
like,
so he was the original Frankenstein, who was
uh huh.
like before the Death Race. It was Death Match, so it was just basically a prison fight movie.
Oh,
So
okay.
because it was even
So
cheaper than the Anderson ones, because they
you don't
didn't
have to
have
use
any
cars.
races.
Oh man, you'd think that they would have used what's his name at that point. The guy who's in Scott Atkins
Oh
at that
yeah,
point.
yeah.
But I guess Gus does have training in like hand to hand stuff, so it makes sense too. Yeah, I did not see those. but they
Yeah,
exist.
I accidentally saw one. I would not have sought it out on my own.
This Death Race 2000 also inspired a bunch of video games.
Carmageddon.
Yeah, it's basically inspiration behind Carmageddon to the point where I guess there was some sort of discussion that they had ripped it off. There was also a 1976 arcade game called Death
Mhm.
Race, and they just stole the name, and there was even a legal
Oh
dispute
wow.
about it. They're like, no, it's just called. But it was one of the earliest cases of the real controversy over violence in video games, and I found a short YouTube clip
Uh-huh.
about it, and it's hilarious because it's like sub stick figure
Right,
level
yeah. I was
graphics.
gonna say, what are you getting outraged about? How can you even tell that there are humans on screen?
Yeah, 1976 level graphics. Like, yeah, it was very funny. But yeah, parent groups have been mad about video games since video games existed.
I mean, I
um,
remember the controversy over the first Grand Theft Auto, and you know that
hmm
the first one was that top down,
Top
and
down. Yeah.
like it's so like humans are little blobs. Like, what are you getting angry
Yep.
about? This is not realistic at all. They're moving little
I
blobs
remember
that turn into little splats if you hit them. That's it.
I remember playing the game specifically because I rented it because of the controversy and just getting bored and stopped playing it really early. It's like, oh, this isn't gross. What
Yeah,
the hell?
right. I
um,
was
yeah, there's
sorry.
that. What's that other video game series called that it was ongoing forever?
Twisted Metal
Twisted Metal.
Black,
Twisted
yeah.
Metal also seems. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That one I actually
Uh-huh.
did play. So
I
yeah,
played
that's sort of.
Carmageddon. I played Carmageddon, I think 1 and 2.
Hmm.
And I remember as a kid even being like, well, if I'm not going to go out of my way to hit or not hit pedestrians. I remember as a kid even having the impulse because you could win the race by killing the most pedestrians,
Hmm.
or actually finishing first, or killing the other contestants. And I always went for the other
Uh-huh.
contestants. Like that felt like the most natural impulse to me. Like it's different than a normal race game and has a bit of a challenge to it, than rather than because they all have gimmicky cars that you have to.
I mean, I guess some racing games that you could say are sort of based on Mad Max, but really, once you get gimmicky cars involved and killing pedestrians, it's pretty death racy at that point.
And I remember I had a huge crush on the sort of poorly rendered the driver lady called Diana.
So that's Death Race 2000. Do you have any other thoughts on that one?
No, it was. I definitely enjoyed it and was amused by it. But it feels like a movie I should have caught when I was 16, 17. Like you, I probably
Hmm.
would have. It would have been part of my pantheon as well. I think.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, for like with the 10th Victim, it has a little bit of that 70s, like, ooh, how are we gonna treat women? And I was like, oh, okay, it's fine-ish, you know.
Like yeah, the relationship that Frankenstein and his navigator, who's one of the secret revolutionaries, it's a pretty sweet relationship
Yeah,
between
yeah.
them. They like dance and stuff. Um, and there's the woman, or there's like a cult of women that they pick one to go stand in the street and get killed as to express their love to
Mhm.
Frankenstein. And that's one of those moments where the movie gets a little dark because you really think that Frankenstein's not going to run her over, but then he does, and he's kind of sad about
Mhm.
it. So it's not really played as a joke or as a moment for Frankenstein to sort of be a better
Mhm.
person.
Yeah, because
It's just sort of.
he's always had his plan to stop these death races, so it's not like we meet
He,
him after the point where he decides to change. That's not, he's had his
hmm
arc by the time we meet him. Ironically enough.
hmm
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you didn't. But yeah, that was my point. Is yeah, it's just sort of dark
Yeah,
moment in
right,
the middle
right.
of it all. But the equal opportunity nudity, of course, there's no dicks, but just because that would have gotten them an X rating instead of an R rating, I'm sure. But the men are also nude. It's pretty equal
Yeah.
opportunity as far as that goes. And again, I think that was a Paul Bartel thing. I think that he seems like the type who would say, "Well, this is if we're gonna have naked women, we should have naked men too,"
Hmm.
kind of situation.
And it's very
Um,
funny that like this was definitely a couple decades before the Marvel bodies. Like
Right.
maybe Spy was kind of buff, but like if you look at Carradine, the romantic hero of this movie, he's a weird looking guy. You know?
He's a little
Yeah.
stringy. He's a little stringy. Yeah, I mean, Stallone's buff, but he's like old school buff. Like he's just sort
Right.
of got mounds on him instead of like gross veins. Like he doesn't look like he's dehydrated.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, yeah, and it definitely, if you would have seen it, it's one of those movies you see as a young person, and some of those movies you love it when you're younger, you grow to dislike as you get older, and some of them you grow to find things you like about them as you get older. And this is one of those ones
Right, right.
where I feel like I expected to grow beyond it, but then every time I watched it, I kind of saw something else I
Mm-hmm.
liked about it. Yeah, so. And then, so here's a segue for you. Speaking of movies you saw as a kid and loved, The Running Man is directed by Michael Glaser, who's mostly was an actor, not a director, and apparently Arnold thought he sucked at directing. That kind of made me sad. But if you ask the question, what's the best Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and I feel like the answer is obvious. It's Total Recall.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree, but for me, it's like, yeah, Total Recall, no problem. But then if someone asks me what the second best Arnold movie
Mm-hmm.
is, I start to struggle
Right, right.
because like the Terminator and the Predator are better movies than The
Mm-hmm.
Running Man, but The Running Man's such a good Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It's almost the platonic ideal of an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie to me. And it's one I definitely watched on TV all the time as a kid. Anytime it was on, I would watch it. So I didn't see the actual R-rated cut until I was old enough to rent it on
Oh
VHS of
gosh,
my
I
own.
didn't even consider
Yeah,
that. Yeah, because
yeah.
honestly, movies weren't really. That's not really a thing that happened here. Like either movies
Hmm.
were, relatively PG-13 to light R-ish, and would get
Hmm.
primetime showings. And if they had slightly darker content, they would get late night showings. And I never,
Hmm.
Running Man was definitely a movie that would be shown on primetime. That
Yeah.
oh yeah,
It was, and it's very easy looking back. It's very easy to cut most of the graphic
mm-hmm.
violence because, like, for instance, towards the beginning of the movie, there's a prison escape, and they have things around their necks that will explode their heads if they go a certain way. And one guy runs beyond it, and his thing goes off. It explodes his head. It's a pretty gory image in the movie when it's uncut, but in cut, you just have an explosive sound and show everybody reacting to it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another where basically you just to put it on TV, they just sort of cut the ends off all the kills because Arnold is particularly bloodthirsty in this film. And so he always takes, like, the person's dead, but he just wants to really make sure they're dead. So, like, it always goes a little bit further. And then, yeah, so it was easy enough to cut for TV, but then that was like an extra special
Right.
thrill, being 16-year-old able to rent it on my own and getting to see people get chainsaws in the groin and stuff like that.
I love
Um,
the like we've been talking about like 60s and 70s. Well, they were kind of okay, 10th Victim and Death Race in terms of like women. And then there's this bit in Running Man, the most recent one of them, where what's his name, the
uh-huh.
opera guy, Centurion Sparky guy,
Uh-huh.
Dynamo. Dynamo. He, he
Dynamo.
he wants to rape Maria Conchita Alonso,
Yes.
and he's like down to his tidy whitey.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, he's going there. Like, it doesn't really go anywhere, and she kills him before anything happens. But the fact that he's just like so thirsty for it that he's this
Yes.
bad guy with his pants around his ankles. That's such a
Yeah.
like. I don't
Yeah.
think that was supposed to like. I'm not sure. Is because this is me laughing at how casually that is treated, I guess. You've got a bad guy here that's threatening the female lead, so guess he wants to rape her.
Yeah.
And
I do think it was supposed to be funny, though.
right, okay.
I think so. That's actually thing about this movie is that over the years, I remember distinctly, I don't remember who it was, but getting in a sort of pseudo argument with someone who had watched it for the first time in many years and was complaining about how corny it
Uh-huh.
was, and trying to explain that no, it's supposed to be funny, it's a
Uh-huh.
comedy, and they just would not believe that it was supposed to be
Uh-huh.
funny, which is a weird thing. Of a lot of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies of the '80s are supposed to be
Uh-huh.
funny, but for some reason they're not remembered that
Right, right.
way. And that's kind of weird to me. But this one is like, I could see saying, "Ah, Predator's not a comedy." No, I guess it's not. But the Terminator's not a comedy. Terminator 2 is not a comedy. But The Running Man is clearly a
Right, right, right.
comedy. It's supposed it's joke. It's like really obvious out there
Uh-huh.
jokes. Just the idea behind it being that it's literally a game show, unlike Death Race, which is sort of like a sort of Super Bowl racing
Right.
event. This is just as like a daily or weekly game show where prisoners are thrown into. It's never quite clear where they're thrown. They're thrown into some sort of like scrapyard or
Uh-huh.
something, and they're supposed to run through a gambit of murderers. Basically, they're like the we had American Gladiators here. I think it was just called Gladiators in the UK. Sort of similar idea where you just have these muscular people that that normal people have to compete against.
Uh-huh.
And in the case of the real TV show, they would usually lose just because they weren't as fit and hadn't done the things. But in the case of this pretend TV show, they would get killed because they were supposed to get killed, and that's the way the show's supposed to
Uh-huh.
go. They're not supposed to
Uh-huh.
survive.
It was funny that, like, oh, if you make it, you'll be able to live your life on whatever Hawaii, like these three guys who made it. Then
Hmm.
later they find out, oh no, we found the skeletons of these three guys, implying that they faked the images of the like the guys chilling in Hawaii with beach babes, and just the
Yeah.
idea that the world we are shown and like the CGI graphics of the world that we are shown being able to construct such good deep fakes is very
Yeah. It is pre. It is. It is. Deep fakes. You know, they weren't too far off. This takes place in 2017. Were they able to deep fake by then?
I think so.
I can't
Yeah, I think
remember.
I think I saw
Yeah.
deepfakes in 2017. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like, but it's funny because besides those deepfakes, we do see
Uh huh.
other special effects from that world, from that universe.
Uh huh.
And all the other special effects are very, visually 1987.
Yeah.
And the deepfakes are obviously just footage that they actually shot that in universe is turns out to be fake. So it's very funny
Yeah.
that they had to circumvent the concept of deepfakes by just actually shooting the footage.
It's another one where I feel like it's clearly making fun of the Reagan era, but it's starring a Republican, a famous Republican, and it was a major release. And so I was trying to figure out how you could really pull this off, and I think it's because if you're not paying attention, you can pretend it's an anti-communist
Mhm.
thing. That it's like if the world went super communist, that this, it was just the way that like Americans thought of communism was just this horrible thing where you wouldn't get to eat, there'd be bread lines, and there'd be everybody would be in horrible prisons. That was just sort of like the
Right,
image people
right,
were given of the Soviet Union. But it's clearly a satire of the sort of casual sadism of the Reagan era and of what TV was like. And I think that Arnold is clearly the centerpiece, and I guess the guy who wrote the story, little known writer known as Stephen
right.
King. I don't know if you heard of him. I kind of he yes, I should say this is based on a Stephen King novella he wrote under the pseudonym Richard Bachman. And apparently that's much darker. Ends with like major destruction and everybody dying, or something along those lines. I did not read it. I did not read. I did not do that research. Um, And the screenplay was by Steven D'Souza, who is basically the go-to
Yeah, he
guy. He did
wrote Commando and
Die
Die
Hard,
Hard.
Commando, 48 Hours. Eventually directed Street Fighter, another movie that's a comedy that
Yeah.
nobody understood was a comedy.
I mean, like,
um,
I imagine having such a resume. Like, hello, I
yeah,
wrote Commando and Die Hard, and I directed Street Fighter and The Running Man.
and he claims that he based part of his script on there was a real game show called the Trans-American Ultra Quiz in Japan, where contestants basically had to endure tortures, and the longer you endured, the better your prizes were, or something
Right.
like that. I was not aware of that. I was aware of Takeshi's Castle, which is a much later show
Yeah, that's a '90s show,
that
I think, right?
yeah. Yeah, believe it was 90s, and that one's more just silly. The people didn't get as badly hurt in that
Right.
one. Anyway, so I think that it's abundantly clear on what this movie's politics are, and that this is all everything the government's built around is a lie, and that they're just forcing people to. It's the same idea, I guess, as 10th Victim, where they're forcing people to watch violence to take their mind off the fact that everything's horrible, and it has the budget to show how awful the world is. Uh, it's like bombed out hellscape with like no lighting or anything like that. And I feel like there's an underground that's more. It's still ragtag, but it's more organized than the one in Death Race 2000. And they're sort of developing ways to combat things. And I feel like the only reason Arnold wants to participate as Arnold Schwarzenegger is that he gets to be totally uninterested in the politics of the
Yeah.
situation. That he just wants revenge. And that the only reason he joins the resistance is because they suck and he needs to show them how to do it correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think that's one of the great um, appeals of Arnold. He is such a weird personality. Like, just
Hmm.
the idea that at one point, I mean, the age of the movie star is pretty much over, I'd say, but
Hmm.
at one point, this weird muscular, you know, tree of a guy who spoke English with a extremely heavy German accent
Hmm.
and had a very limited range was the
Yeah.
biggest star in the world. A guy who got projects greenlit, a guy who not only got projects greenlit, but the whole tone of the movie turned into, like, Running Man goes from dystopian, novella to it's a fucking Arnold movie. Total Recall
Yeah.
was a Cronenberg movie.
Yeah.
Was supposed to be, and the studio, no, we want to make it like a sci-fi Indiana Jones thing, and then Arnold comes aboard, and all that shit's out the window. It's an Arnold movie now.
Yeah, there was there's a version famously there's, like you said, Total Recall was a Cronenberg movie for a while, and the idea was the main character was average. uh and and the idea behind the Stephen King story is that the character is frightfully average. Apparently he's described as particularly skinny, and King was angry that Arnold starred, like King has any right to say anything about. Anyway, but there was one point where there was going to be Christopher Reeves.
Okay, and the Running Man.
Yeah, and the Running Man, and so there's part of me who doesn't. I don't want to replace the Arnold Running Man or Total
Hmm.
Recall, but part of me wants to like visit the universe where those other versions
Hmm.
existed, just to sort of see what happened,
Hmm.
because they sound kind of interesting, taking a super serious tone with them, and then like I mean, he was Superman, but he was still a mostly average
Right,
sized individual.
right.
But yeah, just like it was an interesting idea. But yeah, it becomes an Arnold movie, and in a lot of ways, it's sort of like the ultimate Arnold movie because everything is a pun.
Hmm.
Like it's like I think it's beyond even Commando as far as he can't do anything without, like, every scene ends on a
Right, right,
pun.
right.
You can't cut the movie without having a pun. It's like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. You'd always cut away the scene when Freddy had a one liner, and you'd cut to the next scene like they do. It's not just when Arnold kills people that he puns. It's when he does anything at
Yeah,
all in the movie,
like when
or when he refers to it when he kills a guy. Just everything.
when he's telling off Yaphet Koto, he's like
Yes,
uplink on the ground, uplink on the ground, I'll uplink your ass, and you'll be on the ground.
and you'll be yeah. Well, the ultimate line is when he kills Sub
Right.
Zero, who kind of is a weird character because they set him up like a sumo
Mhm.
wrestler, but then he's a hockey player.
Yeah.
That I always thought that was really strange that they mixed those two concepts. But he kills him and he says, "Here's Sub Zero now,
Zero.
Plane Zero," and you like have to pause the movie and think about what the hell does that mean?
He has
What?
increased in value.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like it's such a nonsense line, but it made it all the way through the edit. And I get the feeling Arnold himself came up with it, and no one could like. I'm not going to tell him it's a weird line. I'm not going to tell him.
It's oddly enough, that's also a running theme in these movies. Sly writing his own lines, Arnold.
Yeah, Arnold possibly, but not verifiably writing his own weird puns or whatever. I guess that's a pun. Yeah, that's a play on words, sort
I
of.
like that. I like that. It's nonsensicality. I feel adds to its power, not just because it makes it more silly, but because you say it fits into that theme where Arnold is just joining the rebellion, the resistance, because they're all stupid idiots that can't do it as well as he
Hmm.
can, and he's going to show everyone up. And like making a bad pun that makes no sense when he kills Sub Zero, it has that bully energy.
Yeah. So,
If you've ever been, and if you're listening to a B movie horror podcast, you've probably been bullied at one point in your life. So, my dear
mhm.
listeners, remember back when you were a kid, when you were being bullied, there was always that moment when they're roasting you, and like some of these lines aren't making any sense, but they're on a roll and they're bigger and tougher and cooler than you, so you can't go up, like your brain is saying, "Hey, wait a minute," and the movie is fully asking you to bask in that vibe. Like we
Yes.
fucked this guy up, and now we're gonna drop some nonsense roast on him. and, and it's treating this as like this thing to revel in. Yay! This is why you all paid a ticket.
He well, I also feel like Arnold. The reason Arnold wins is because he's more sadistic than the what they call the stalkers. He's smiling while he's brutally murdering people.
Yes, I love that.
It's not he's not sort of like in a lot of those like even in Total Recall like he does sort of revel in killing the real bad guys, but there's a lot of points in the movie where he's just shooting people and trying to get out of the way, and he's like he doesn't care about collateral damage, but he's also not bloodthirsty, whereas in this he is sort of bullying all of these professional bullies. And that's like exactly what the revolution wins. They're too dorky.
Hey,
They're
that's another thematic through line with Death Race 2000. That with
yeah.
the resistance lady with do better, but all the other soldiers
Yeah.
actually have revolutionary ideas. Arnold is the one that makes the revolution work because he's a
Because
harder bully than the dystopian
he's
guy.
he's 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 got the sadism to make the revolution work. They just don't have it in them. They're trying to do like in Death Race. They're setting up like Wile E. Coyote gags to kill people, and in Running Man they're trying to like they're doing everything they can to hack the system.
Yeah.
And of course, in the days when screenwriters did not know what hacking would entail, um, there's like a weird part where they even know how to get into like like they want Arnold. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's to piss Arnold off more. They send Yaphet Kotto and this other guy who were his
Mhm.
sort of cellmates in
Yeah. Right.
prison. They send them in, so he feels like he has to protect
Hmm.
them. And the nerdy guy is really into the idea of fixing the
Right.
problem for the
Hmm.
revolutionaries, and he has to memorize all this information. I guess that's what the woman's like without mentioning it. She's really good at memorizing numbers,
Yeah.
apparently. He just reads her a bunch of numbers and letters, and she
Yeah.
remembers them somehow. But after all this work, they just show up. Like, they could have gone in there at any time. I don't know. I guess they just needed that one satellite uplink or something to break into the system. And then, oh yeah, that's right. She also steals, like, the whole point is that Arnold is a cop who has been
Wrongfully accused. Yeah.
framed as killing people who are rioting for food. He's like, they're just hungry people. They just want food. I'm not going to open fire. Which, you know, was kind of depressing given the current state of the world. that there aren't cops like that, apparently. Not in the real world. There are no Arnolds in the real world. But so she finds the tape that exonerates him. And there's even a joke where, like, someone realizes, how did she have it with her the whole time? And so there's sort of imply that she put it inside of herself. And I feel like they made a joke out of it, but that was really just the screenwriters kind of forgetting that she had been changed into the weird yellow jumpsuit and stuff. But yeah, it's the whole resistance is kind of nonsense, and he just keeps yelling at them to, like, I don't care, but you have to do it better. What's his name? Mick Fleetwood, Resistance.
This guy, Dweezil Zappa.
Dweezil Zappa and Mick Fleetwood Resistant. Apparently, the theory amongst fans is that he is Mick Fleetwood.
Because they call him Mick. Yeah.
Which is funny because I don't know if, did you ever see the movie The Postman?
Yeah. The Kevin Costner one.
Yeah, Tom Petty plays Tom Petty in the dystopia future. He plays himself.
Oh, I forgot.
There's a point where he says, yeah, Tom Petty shows up and he says, and you're like, oh, it's just Tom Petty playing a character. But then Kevin Costner says, didn't you used to be famous? And he goes, I did in a different life, you know? So there's precedent now for like 70s rock stars playing themselves in post-apocalyptic or dystopian futures and leading societies. The whole cast is really fucking cool. I guess you got two governors in this, in Schwarzenegger and Jesse Ventura, former governor of my state, Minnesota. I only lived here for a couple months when he was governor, though he did not run for re-election. And I suppose that they're both in Predator 2, and then also Sonny Landham, I don't know how you say his name. He ran for governor of Kentucky, but lost.
What was Sonny Landham in?
He's in Predator.
Oh, okay.
So Predator has the advantage. He's the big guy, the
Billy,
native guy who's not actually native. Yeah, Billy. Yeah, apparently he ran on. He lost his bid because he called for the genocide of Arab people.
Which people?
Arab people.
Oh, God.
He ran against Mitch McConnell, but had to drop out after he did that. And then when he was running for governor, he apparently lost his, I don't know why I wrote all these factoids down. It has nothing to do with the Running Man, but he apparently lost, like, he was an abusive husband and lost his children to family court. And so his whole thing running for governor of Kentucky was an anti-family court kind of stance. So yeah, he's a scumbag. But,
I wonder if he had won and Mitch McConnell's career had been derailed, how much
exactly. He still sounds like a bad person, but maybe he would have been worse at being a bad person than Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell was really good at being a bad person.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it might have saved us. I don't know. So I guess Predator wins like the governor race because it has like 2.5 governors. But they both. This one has a Jim Brown representing your football players. Who it's weird how unrecognizable he is without his mustache.
Yeah, weird.
It's like he looks like a different person without that mustache. It's crazy that they took off his mustache and put like a Bride of Frankenstein wig on his head. And it looks like a different person. But yeah, so you got rock stars, football players, Yaphet Kotto, just representing cool character actors that everybody wants to be. And then the guy who played Dynamo, who I'm going to butcher this name, is Erland van Leith de Jund. I think or Jund. He was an actual opera singer who had a minor wrestling career. They didn't fake any
That's a
of that.
heck of a combo career.
Isn't it? It's like you think they just found him and wrote the character around that, right? There's no way that was in the script. Big fat guy who
Yeah,
sings
because like the
opera. Like,
concept is so weird. Like you have okay, sure, you have an electricity themed guy. Okay, cool.
yeah, but why does
But
he
also
sing?
he's a centurion for some reason who has
Yeah,
a car, a buggy, and also he sings. Like,
yeah,
no, yeah, exactly.
yeah. It's very strange. And I guess Ventura, we never get to really see what Ventura's gimmick is.
Yeah, because we only
Uh,
see his deep fake.
You see his deep fake, and we see him walk out in a terrible costume that he can't even point with. He's actually really funny
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this.
because he's
I
kind of
forget.
like a guy who has honor, and he.
Yeah, he tries to point with this dumb costume. Yeah, he has honor, and really, like he's like. There's a really good scene where he's sort of become a commentator, which is really common in the real world that former athletes become commentators, and he just gets interrupted in the middle of like his speech. It's like he's just too miserable to do anything, and so his face off against Arnold is totally faked. It's actually the fake. It's Peter Kent. You see when the deep fake goes off his face, you can see that it's Peter Kent, who is Arnold's
Oh,
real
okay.
life stunt double, and who you can see as the bodybuilder zombie in the movie The Reanimator.
Oh, okay, cool.
Apparently, Arnold was a big fan of Reanimator because his buddy Peter Kent was in
No,
it.
seriously.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
But yeah, the thing that I just can't believe people don't understand as a comedy is just the fact that, like, yeah, you have a sumo wrestler hockey guy, you have an electronic opera guy. I guess guy with flamethrower isn't that funny, but it's still kind of funny. It's clownish. It's like I mean, I suppose the WWF was sort of really peaking around
Oh,
this time,
yeah,
if I'm
yeah,
remembering
exactly.
correctly. So they're, but I'm surprised they didn't use. I guess the guy who plays Sub Zero was a wrestler.
Mhm.
So they had one, and now I get now that I'm actually using my brain, Jesse
Just
Ventura
for
was
sure,
a
it's
wrestler.
wrestling.
So they did have two pro wrestlers, and I feel like maybe there's a horrible universe where Arnold didn't want to do it, and they ended up getting Hulk Hogan instead.
No.
That would just be the worst. But and there's one thing I keep forgetting. I keep wanting to come around to the real casting genius is that Richard Dawson basically plays himself.
Yeah, so this
Um,
is a thing that I only learned after getting on the internet because Family Feud was never on here, at least not the American version.
mhm.
When I first saw Running Man as a kid, I just assumed Richard Dawson was some character actor I'd never heard of.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, do continue about why, because you're the.
Well, I was gonna say when I saw it as a kid, I assumed it was just a look-alike. I didn't know to. I was like 7 years old. I didn't read credits, um, because I couldn't believe that this beloved weirdo host would play an evil version of himself that was that evil. But like, I guess Dawson was game. It said in the IMDb thing that he had a thing where he wasn't going to cuss. That was his only rule, which seems really arbitrary considering he's sending people to their deaths. But he also totally cusses throughout the whole movie. um, but it's really kind of brilliant casting because he's good at it too. Like you couldn't Alex Trebek could not play an evil Alex
Mhm.
Trebek. Like it wouldn't work. He's not an actor, but like Dawson had such a personality that he can just play this absolute
Right.
scumbag version of himself, and that you really want Arnold, even though Arnold is the ultimate bully, you really want him to get Richard Dawson, kill the shit out of him. But it's just that to me that's crazy that to think back on it that this was done, and then just imagine being like a Family Feud fan in the
Mhm.
day and like being excited because he even sort of plays up his personality on Family Feud was that he kind of creepily kissed everybody,
Mhm.
and there are scenes where like he goes into the audience and he picks out like the little old
Yeah.
lady and like that's something Richard Dawson would
Right.
do.
Okay.
It, and that's also another joke I really like in this movie is that they're just sort of shoveling prizes at people in the
With
audience,
the board game and stuff.
including
Yeah.
the home, the home game, which was always a thing I remember, like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. They always had a home game that they would send
Yeah.
people home, and I always remember going, "What the fuck is that? How do you play that at home?" But and then there's another really good joke where Richard Dawson is looking for the perfect person because he's losing his audience, but he's really not. It's like that classic billionaire needs to make more money. Like he needs to make even more money, and he's looking through a bunch of mugshots, and one of them is literally a baby. and it just goes by really quick, but there's like a baby, and it has a profile and front view of a baby. And the idea that this world is just so awful that they also jailed babies in the it's like a hard work camp. It's not just a
Yeah.
prison, but
Right.
like they're doing stuff. It's a full on gulag. I didn't want to make you watch it, but there is a Lucio Fulci movie called Warriors of the Year 2072. I think it's on DVD here in the U.S. as The New Gladiators. That was very similar to The Running Man, and it came out 3 years before it. And full, Italian horror fans, we're very we have self-esteem issues, and our thing always needs to be special. So there was a long period of time where everybody was like, "Yeah, Fulci and Dardano Sacchetti, they wrote this like before, and this American studio ripped them
Right.
off, not taking into account that it's almost positive the Italian screenwriters read the Stephen
Yeah.
King story because he was very popular in Italy as well. And even if they didn't, it's probably a coincidence because there was just a time in Italy when everybody was trying to make Escape from New York and Mad Max ripoffs. So basically, they had Escape from New York, and somebody said, "Let's put it with gladiators in a game show." They also are probably trying to rip off Rollerball, which is a movie I haven't mentioned yet. Rollerball is probably the most popular of this kind of movie. Like, I didn't really even feel like rewatching it because everybody knows Rollerball. But yeah, the Fulci movie does have. It's surprisingly anti-fascist, which and also surprisingly funny. I guess Fulci used to make comedies, but it's actually a pretty good movie. I talked about it a lot more length on Directors Club podcast when they had me on for the Fulci movie. So, or Fulci podcast. So I talked about more on there. But the one other funny thing is that you got Jim Brown in The Running Man, and you have Fred Williamson in
Oh
the
yeah.
Fulci
Right.
movie. So ex football players with nice mustaches are in both of them. Also, did you ever play? Because we were talking about video games. Did you ever play Smash TV back in the day?
Smash TV.
Yeah, it was Smash TV, and then it is basically the video game arcade shooter. It was a top-down
Right.
shooter version of Running Man,
Oh no, I never heard of that.
and it had a sequel called Total Carnage. It was just like it was like a never-ending series of levels, and it was a quarter muncher. Like you were one hit kill, and just hundreds of guys would run on the screen, and you'd have to. It was like a constant shooting thing, and you'd have to rotate the joystick to say which
Right.
direction you wanted
Right.
to shoot
Okay.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a game I played a lot. If I was at an arcade and they had either Smash TV or Total Carnage, I would play them. And it didn't work on the home because you didn't have a
Right.
joystick.
Yeah.
It
Right.
was
Right.
always hard to play. But so yeah, this one sort of had a rip-off video game too, just like Death Race did.
Oh.
On my Blu-ray, again, I hadn't watched the extras before. This is a 2004 Blu-ray was the one I have, the older one. The only extras other than a commentary were something about the Patriot Act
Okay.
and something about civil liberties post 9/11, and then something about the rise of reality shows in the early 2000s. Nothing about The Running Man as a movie, the making of the movie. And it was so strange that right in the end of Bush Jr.'s second term, we got. I think these were actually extras from the DVD, not the Blu-ray, but just the idea that they had made these like super serious,
Right.
like like the idea that this is this like the most this movie was warning us about what was going to come with the Patriot Act, even though there's really not much with the Patriot Act in, in this movie. I mean, it's really about propaganda, not stealing people's information. But if anything, the good guys take advantage of that. But I thought that was funny.
Yeah, definitely.
So I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about Running Man, the arguably second best Arnold Schwarzenegger movie?
There is. I actually did read the Stephen King novella.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And apparently they're doing a new adaptation of that in TV show form or in miniseries form. I'm not sure. I wasn't a fan of it. I mean, if you've seen The Running Man first, then this just kind of guy who gets stalked. But it's a bit like a mix of the movie The Running Man and The 10th Victim, because he is just kind of moving around the world. He's not in an arena. And it ends with him flying a plane into the TV studio.
So as God, if they would have done that in the movie, there would have been another special feature on the
The
Blu-ray about
9/11.
the Twin
Yeah.
Towers.
And yeah, I read it as part of the Stephen King collection, the Bachman books, which in the late 80s they sort of threw together a couple of his Bachman books under a book called The Bachman. And I had read it as I was kind of filling the gaps of Stephen King books I had not yet read. And the Bachman books kind of I think they were the fourth King book or something that I started doing on that Plugging the King Gaps project. But I was like, fuck it, this ain't worth my time anymore, because the King kind of has, or at least 80s King definitely has a very male-centric view of he's not really exploitative in the sense that he writes about sex or anything, but he definitely seems to have a women, they are different species type of vibes in whatever his characters are. Because I read the Talisman in that run too. The Christine was a real women, what are they type of deal. And the Running Man and paired with Road Work, they were all just so kind of like. And again, it's not like it's a prevalent theme or something that is very at the forefront of things, but the fact that sort of what is Win keeps repeating throughout all his books made me go like, oh, I'm done with this. There's other things I could be reading. So yes, technically I read The Running Man, but fuck me if I remember a lot of it. Like, yeah, just stay with the fucking Arnold. If you meet anyone who says like, just a dumb Hollywood adaptation of the real dark Stephen King novella, just call him a fucking nerd and tell them they're plain zero now.
With the pause. Now, plane zero. Like he just thought of it off the top. Oh God, it's so funny. Yeah, I tried to watch some more movies without making you watch them, and I kind of lost interest. But the two I watched directly after this were the two that felt the most like they were trying to be The Running Man. Was Deathrow
Right.
Gameshow, which is sort of if you combine a trauma movie and those horrible TGIF sitcoms like Full House and shit. It's like the mentality of those two things mashed together, and the idea that it's literally a game show for death row people, and if they win, they can get off. But the real story is that this guy who hosts it is hated all over town. It's not a dystopia. It's like supposed to be like 1987 LA. And he's hated all over town, and that he's also his show is not fair because they're supposed to kill the death row inmates, and he killed a mob boss, and so has a bunch of hits out
Right.
on him. So most of the plot is him trying to fix that problem, and it has one kind of funny gag where he has a nightmare about being hunted like this, and the nightmare is preceded by a green band trail MPAA trailer
Right.
type thing, and says who's directed this nightmare. That's like the one really funny part in
Right.
the whole
Right.
movie. And then I also watched the most ridiculous one I watched was called Absolute Aggression, which came out in '96, and I didn't know this was a semi sequel to another movie, and apparently it looks like the director hired Robert Davi to play in one movie and then used
The footage.
the footage for two movies. And so basically, Absolute Aggression is like a virtual reality version of this concept where death row inmates get to fight for their thing, but it's like it's so overthought that like it's like if you die in the simulation you die in reality, but it's not true. If you die in the simulation they wake you up and then they give you lethal injection.
If you die in the
um
simulation, you eventually die in reality.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a, and you can tell that the guy made the movie out of clips, and that most of the battle things are either they're like it's like he knew people for the Society for Creative Anachronism, uh, and so he just went and like watched like people reenacting a battle between settlers and natives, and just filmed around it, and people doing a jousting tournament, like literally in the park. Like it's that cheap, but its one value is that it's the only one of these movies I ever saw that pushes for a right wing version, a conservative
Right.
version.
Right.
So the reason the world is in such a terrible place that we have death row game shows is that we've rejected conservative values and American exceptionalism. So society collapses because of out of control tax rates, and over half the employers in America go out of
Oh
business,
no.
and and they hand out corporal punishment for tax evasion, public smoking, gun ownership, and something they call speech code violations, which really sounds like being canceled to me.
You said a slur.
And you get put on death row for saying a slur or smoking in public. And the rebels in this movie are American military units who, quote, refuse to surrender the UN takeover of the Pentagon. And also, this came out in 1996. It was written before that. And one of the bad guys is a stone cold murderess named Hillary.
Oh.
And at one point, she orgasms mid coitus and shoots a guy in the face.
I mean, that's cooler
And
than the
I just
real
made it sound
Hillary.
cooler than it is. Yeah, I just made it sound cooler than it is. It's really there's like there'll be a couple. It's a little bit like a porno in that way that there'll be like these sudden shifts away from what was happening in the movie to have a sort of softcore sex scene. But it is like made like on a budget that's so low that like it's unbelievable, and like yeah, you're surprised Robert Davi's even in it.
Right.
But
Right.
again, it seems like they they just tricked him into being in two movies, and that they did. It's pretty funny. And then yeah, I mean I've seen some of these other movies that were on the list, and you know Battle Royale is good, and then The Condemned should be cool because it's a bunch of
Uh-huh.
wrestlers doing Battle Royale, but it's not very cool. And then the Rob Zombie movie 31 is by far the worst Rob Zombie movie I've ever seen, which is, you know, really probably saying something for most people. Otherwise, yeah, there's a lot of these. There's a lot of foreign ones I've never seen that sound kind of neat, but I just didn't squeeze them all in. Mostly stuck to the
Right. Right.
classics. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on most dangerous game show movies, as I'm calling them. Do you have anything else on this subject
Well,
to say?
I had a good time. I learned. It was fun rewatching Running Man, an old favorite. And I
Mm-hmm.
definitely enjoyed the 10th Victim as well as Death Race 2000. It's always fun to have your horizons broadened and your
Uh huh.
sort of your your cinematic lexicon enriched, because those were two influential ass movies that
Yeah.
I only really realized when watching them during the actual viewing. So yeah, and it's and recording this podcast also made me think about how science fiction can only be a reflection of things that are already in society. And if you
Hmm.
go and search for the roots of a thing like a Deathrow game show, well, first you need the
Hmm.
concept of a game show in your society. So most things like, oh, let's do a episode on, I don't know, vampires. Well, obviously the roots of the vampires in old mythology and in 19th century novels and
Hmm.
whatnot. But if you're gonna, like, oh, let's talk about death row game show movies, where are the roots? And you can't really go much further back than the 60s, because there were no game shows
Yeah.
in the
And there, yeah.
that's and that was something I didn't even consider. And it's nice to think of how even our trash cinema is a reflection of society, and comment upon it. And it's nice to consider that most of these movies, with especially contrasted with something like absolute aggression, they are
Hmm.
they tend to be leftish leaning. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Even a big mainstream movie like Running Man.
They
So
have good morals.
yeah. So yeah, had
Yeah.
a lovely time, Gabe.
All right, cool. Well, do you want, what do you want to advertise your stuff? What do you guys got going on, you and your
Well, at
podcasts, plural?
At monstercommentaries.libsyn.com, you will find Monster Island Commentaries and its spin-off Movie Lobby Commentaries, where we've recently done Gamera versus Virus, the definitely an inspiration for Wes Anderson and his Steve Zissou and Moonrise Kingdom, only with an alien squid to fight. We also did the recent Godzilla versus Kong, and in the non-kaiju section, we did Parasite recently, and we've got 90s classic Good Burger coming up.
Oh no, I actually saw that. I worked at a daycare when I was in college. That's one of those movies that, Babe Pig in the City and Polly. God, there's this whole list of movies I've seen because we were trying to entertain children after school. I've actually seen that
I've
one.
not. I actually
Yeah.
learned that because we had Keenan and Kel in Europe, or
Hmm.
the TV show, and I once I got on the internet, I learned about this movie that they were in called Good Burger, but I'd never seen it, and I assumed it was just like, okay, it's a Keenan and Kel movie. But I learned that they were like on a kiddie SNL called All That, in which they had
Hmm.
recurring characters that worked at a burger joint, and they were such breakout characters that they turned that into a movie and gave the actors ultimately their own show. So, like, that's wild. That's fucking
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was just a little bit too old for that to be something I
Right.
watched, but it was all something I was aware of
Hmm.
at the time for sure. Yeah, that's funny. And yeah, I can't remember. You said which Gamera it was. It's the one with the squid guy. It's not the one with the knife head guy.
No, that's Guyron.
Which
I think we've done that though.
Guy Run. I know that there's a new remastered Blu-ray set of that, of the whole series, that I don't know if I'm willing to spend that much money to get, but I was considering it.
Yeah, the thing with Gamera is that while there are entertaining Gamera movies, they are all kind of the absolute aggression to Godzilla's Running Man.
I remember them being kind of all the same movie
Oh
too.
yeah, the Gamera
Like
dips
especially those early
into
ones.
stock footage real quick.
Yeah.
Like by the third movie, we're just legit reusing sequences from the previous three movies. Gamera Super
uh,
Monster, which was the final one of the Gamera Showa era, is like, I think there's like 20% new footage in there. It's basically a clip show movie.
yeah, yeah, those were the days.
Mhm.
We'd never do that now.
Kevin
Oh,
Feige
well,
wishes.
he wishes. Well, you just wait. Well, that's Disney Plus has shit like that where like where's Marvel Universe now? Just watch a bunch of clips and remember things. And I think it's going to be like an actual documentary, which sounds sort of interesting, but it's really just a clip show.
Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that right before WandaVision. Hey, do you remember who Wanda and the Vision were? Check out Marvel Legends, and
yeah, it's like, oh cool, look back at the. Oh no, it's not really.
it's just a clip show from the movie.
Yep. It's not a deep dive into their cinematic or their comic roots.
Yeah, because that might have been interesting. Because they're weird characters.
Yeah. They're very weird characters, and it's I'll be honest, it's kind of hard to read some of those old Avengers comics. So I would like a good clip Cliff's Note version of that shit. Yeah. Okay. Well, as usual, I can be reached at Gabe Powers. I'm sorry. It's the third time I said my Twitter handle wrong in a row. At Gabe
Powers,
M.
yes.
Powers, because there was already a Gabe Powers and a Gabe _Powers, sons of bitches. Or at Genre Grinder, or on the Genre Grinder website, or at Genre Grinder on Facebook. Where can they reach you other than the... Do you have? Yeah, you guys have a Twitter, right?
We do.
Yeah, I follow it.
you do. We are to be found at Monster Island Commentaries on Twitter, but like Gabe M. Powers, it's actually at MI Commentaries. So MI Commentaries written together. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, Monster Island Commentaries. To see our updates and we're on Patreon too, I guess. Is that a social media site?
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, sure. It's Patreon.
Patreon.
Yeah.
Monster Island Commentaries on Patreon. So that's where you can find us. So we're on I said SoundCloud. Stitcher. We're on Stitcher too.
Stitcher's the one. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for being on. And as I say at the end of all these, Black Lives Matter. This time we're going to say Free Palestine. And I'm going to have the usual links to charities if anybody has a couple bucks to spare on the description of the podcast and on the website.
We will see a Free Palestine in our lives.
Hopefully.
I just want it to be incendiary.
All right. Yeah.
Fuck you if you don't want to see a Free Palestine in our lives.
Don't listen to this movie podcast about cult films.
We need to bully Israel harder, like Arnold.
Just like Arnold, we just need to be a bunch of Arnolds. We need Arnolds and Arnolds.
Yes.
All right. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Or die is what they call it, so don't be shy. You just might get on the door number 1, door number 2. Well, there is the door for you now. Is it 3? Get off your knees, boy, don't you know?